speaking. Thanks for inviting me along. I'm from Sheffield, in the Sheffield City Council Flood and Water team, in the Sheffield City Council Flood and Water team, closer still. So I work in engineering and flood management, but my background is actually in landscape design and ecology, and I've sort of skilled up in the engineering side of water over the last 20 years. And I suppose what I'm passionate about, fundamentally, is about using the landscape to manage water and getting multiple benefits. Obviously with flood risk or controlling, reducing the possibility of flooding being the key thing. So I'm just absolutely into sustainable drainage. Where the arrow is. Yeah, so just a quickie, Sheffield, I mean we have big flood risk as well, like yourselves. 2007, a few people lost their lives in that event, so that's the background for us. That is the main issue for Sheffield. We're doing defending. I mean, this is one that I put in at the beginning after the flooding, which was defending and tying in with a new park. We try to be creative in how we do defence. Defence is obviously one solution, but there's obviously other options as well, such as using open spaces. So we've got proposals to use maybe parks or fields on the edge of the city to hold water as well. But something that I'm hearing very much is you can teach us a lesson or two about this subject, which is looking at the wider catchment as well. So this is obviously looking at climate resilience for Sheffield into the future and how we tackle 450 square kilometres of catchment outside the city to slow that flow, reduce the peak and build climate change and tackle, counter climate change as it erodes into the standard of protection that we're going to get from defences. So quite a lot of work to do, and Jackie's here, who I work with in the Environment Agency. We're very close workers with the EA and with other collaborative bodies as well, other partnerships. So, like you, we're probably behind you, but we're making some good starts. But I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about urban catchments. You can see Sheffield here. The urban catchment is part of the catchments loading water into river systems. The dark blue are the main rivers, but we've got hundreds of kilometres of ordinary water courses as well. So, we've got a lot of work to do to slow the catchment down as well from the city. I've blown this up on GIS, the blue and the red. The blue is the extensions of the city since the 60s and 70s when we separated out our sewers into separate surface water and found. The red is all combined. That's combining found and surface water. They both have their issues. The combined, as we know, with the issues of combined sewer overflows, maybe sewer flooding with capacity, climate change, urban sealing, urban creep as we call it. But the blue is also, that's been thrown into the rivers straight away. It's only in the last 20 years really we've been actually slowing water down from new development. All that before was just chucking water into rivers with the pollutant off surfaces like hydrocarbons, heavy metals, rubber from tyres, all those things are going to our water courses. So, there's a lot of things to deal with. The water courses now are playing more and more of a role in the city, because before they were, isolated from the catchment. Now we're directing new developers to rebuild the city to those water courses. We're trying to get maximum benefit from brownfield redevelopment and greenfield sites to slow that flow down. But obviously it's not just about development, it's about other opportunities as well, other infrastructure investment around the city. Are there other ways we can deal with water and get multiple benefits? I just say long-term change because it's like the rural catchment, it's multi-decades here. And just a quick one, a few slides of SuDS. We've been doing this for 20 years now. This is Manor Fields, this is how I got into this subject. This is managing Bellway Homes developments, 300 houses. And that's still operating beautifully to 2019, holding all those cubic metres of water, slowing it down, adding biodiversity, adding a dynamic interest in the park, what's not to like really with these features. And we've got many of these now across the city. This is one, it's been running a couple of years. This is managing 8 hectares of housing, different developments. We've built it and then we get money back from the developers. And that's the end result. It's a controlled flow of clean water that returns to the river from all those hectares of development, because it's going through a series of wetlands and can store thousands of cubic metres of water. So we actually charge the residents a small fee for this so we can look after it into the future. So that's how we're looking after these features. We're trying to do source control as well. That's integrating what Amanda said, where water, rain falls, you manage it as close to where it falls. Source control. In the development itself, can we do stuff within development? So, permeable pavement, it took me 2.5 years to get highways persuaded to have this included in our highway adoption and convince them that it's not going to cause people to fall over or worms come out of the ground or block. You know, these things work. Without maintenance, they work brilliantly. With maintenance, it's absolutely fantastic. So, and in any integration of green within a development, can we manage to kind of get water on the surface through that development? But I'm really here to talk about the retrofit side, the city centre sort of stuff. Greater Green, as it was the first project, I'm going to talk about that now. That'll be the main focus. This is the city centre of Sheffield. We've got these kind of routes through the city. The orange one is the gold route. It's thematic. It's trying to get some readability to the city, really. So that one's running from the station. We've got the steel route running north-south. And the purple bit is Greater Green route, if you like. It's the green bit. And that's the theme for that particular area. Now, at the top of the picture, you probably can't quite see it, but there's a sort of the yellow line, because the purple route was where all the traffic around the north of Sheffield went to the M1. That was the main route. That was multi-lanes, tons of traffic. We pushed the traffic to the north and, in effect, generated an extension to the city centre and the potential for redevelopment and expanding, quality environment. So the idea of Greater Green was to address the issues of that area. And you can see, obviously, highway, really redundant highway, because it was no longer used, but it was a kind of barrier to movement with railings and lots of traffic lights, really unused, a lot of hard standing. Flooding is a legacy in that area as well, from the river. There are lots of opportunities of new developments, so trying to create a setting for that, but also people living in the city as well, so more people living, so the importance of creating green space. So that's a new part of the river there. So lots of opportunities associated with Greater Green. There's Greater Green 1 in 2014. Just really an inviting area with quite a high-profile demand. That's the law courts. We've got some serious law firms. Irwin Mitchell, one of the big law firms of the country, just around the corner here. And a massive development site to the rear. So the idea of trying to create a better environment for people to be in, and not a barrier. And these are the kind of key things of creating a setting for investment was really what Greater Green was about. It was an economic thing. It was about creating jobs, it was creating floor space, creating an attractive environment to bring investment in. But all those other things were what we were also trying to do at the same time. So sustainable drainage was always there. We've been pushing SuDS through the city historically. Let's get it into this redevelopment. Obviously sustainable transport being part of the mix, cycling, pedestrian, making space for people, getting the vehicles reduced down, reduced area, reduced speeds. And then these other things about getting a different sort of vegetation into the city. This was working with the university, so you'll see some of the photos of that, and I'll explain what that's about. So these ideas of reclaiming highway, lots and lots and lots of highway, lots of impermeable surfaces. Can we make actual new spaces out of the redevelopment of this area of the city? And the city garden is really emphasising the issue of city centres now. They're changing, aren't they? Retail is becoming less dominant. We need to have other things that people are drawn into cities for. And we want plants to be that draw. We want the colour and the seasonality and biodiversity to be an important part of that mix. So that's Greater Green, that purple long sausage you saw on the drawing before. That's the two lumps that have been delivered. Greater Green 1 on the left, Greater Green 2 on the right. So it's over 1 kilometre long. We've got spurs that are being done at the moment. In fact, some have been completed off that as well. So it's a complete transformation from a large amount of tarmac to a very green environment. And I mean, just to run through the thing, you've got to first of all lay out what you need from a transport point of view. That's the key thing. What are the bus routes? Reconfiguring the buses, the city centre is part of this. So what are the bus routes? Where do we need cycle connectivity? Where do we need pedestrian? I suppose you have to kind of get these elements in and see what you can work with and win out of the land that you have to generate green from. So that sort of schematic there is showing what we've actually acquired out of that planning process. It's not just, about greenery, so many other things. So this is really part of the argument for doing Greater Green. It was more than just putting green in. These are all the aspects that you can get from that sort of thing. So that's the main drag in front of the law courts. Obviously, the SuDS element is about capturing water. We'll talk about that more. Combined sewer flows and treatment reduction. This has all been taken out of combined sewer and going to the River Don, so that's extraction out of the system. Carbon capture maybe, but we're creating great environments for tree growth, big soil environments with irrigation from the natural rain, so we're getting great growth on trees. That's an aspect of building biomass within the urban environment. And obviously, with the drought we've got at the moment, drought tolerance is really important. These are getting irrigated, albeit we didn't get much rain for a long time. But when they does rain, they do get rain. And I suppose it's about designing vegetation that is drought tolerant, but also even adding to that, they get irrigated by that rainfall. So that'll all be soaking up these rainfall events that we've had. But there's other things as well. I'm sure you'll know there's all this deep vegetation around Greater Green. There's obviously a big filter to low-level pollution from vehicles and creating fantastic roots at the same time. Obviously the tree canopies as well. And then water quality. We're putting water in the river here off roads. So we need to look at how we can integrate water quality into the greenery that we have. Because as I say, there's hydrocarbons and so on. We don't want those finding their way into the river. But we're winning space here. There's so much tarmac that we've been able to create new places. I was there the other day. There must have been 40 people gathered in this whole seating area, from being tarmac to something completely different and wonderful, really. And obviously coming with that is all that. It's the health and well-being. People are taking these routes to work now as a choice because they're shady and because they're biodiverse, colourful and so on, and interesting to watch throughout the year. And even this is on Greater Green 2. We've completely closed this road to buses. This is now totally pedestrian and cycle, and now we're using that for a flower market every month, and that works really well. It's a fantastic addition to the cultural calendar for Sheffield. And obviously, biodiversity, we're going to the tarmac, aren't we, too? Basically, the other day, full of grasshoppers in the sun, fantastic butterflies, bees. It's just a no-brainer. We're generating quite a lot of biodiversity from these things. So the SuDS aspect of it, really, this is a retrofit. It's not driven by, we have a major flood problem there. It's taking an opportunity to put SuDS in as part of infrastructure. And the learning that comes with that has been massive. So I think that's a thing to say about retrofit. It's a huge learning opportunity. So taking that opportunity to do that, making landscapes manage water, getting benefit from the water in the landscape, it's future-proofing, it's returning water to its natural catchment back into the river system, all sorts of benefits. That's the rationale behind it. And we employed a SuDS designer who I've worked with for 20 years, Bray Associates, and basically, the SuDS thinking about how you design SuDS, and these are some of the kind of classic criteria which we're trying to do. Amanda mentioned some of these, mimicking nature. We're trying to keep water near the surface in the vegetation, allowed to soak into the ground. And one of the key things there is over the surface, it just runs off the surface of the road. And that was a challenge with highways, no curb, but the water just falls off the road into the SuDS and soaks, and is on the surface. It's not being condemned to a pipe network by a gully, which is basically what conventional drainage is. So, what that does is capture treatment of pollutants, the ones I mentioned, because they're now linearly spread along the whole of this road, open to aeration, open to oxidation, bioremediation, photolysis from the light, and all sorts of things. All these things are broken down. And we're getting other things here. Now, interception losses is a SuDS principle, and that is really about the fact that most rainfall events, 90+ events, are really very small events, and most of them don't even find their way to a watercourse. They're lost in the landscape. But when you urbanize a catchment, most rainfall events flashily go to a watercourse. What we're trying to avoid there with SuDS is to try and get that interception losses. So all those small events probably never leave this vegetation, and that's what nature should be about. And obviously, we're also trying to utilise this landscape to control the flow using shallow landscapes to hold that water before it's released to the river. Talk about the art of the possible. I mean, this is a globe of Greater Green 1. I'm not looking at this, am I? I can tell. It's going back and forth. But that's a globe of Greater Green 1. And you can see maybe a bit below as I blow up even further. This is a series of cells, effectively, planting areas. Because Sheffield slopes, like a lot of places, you're trying to hold the water down the landscape in a series of terraces. You're holding the flow, and it's passing down the network. So, the art of the possible is saying, don't set yourself a target necessarily from SuDS in an urban context like this. It's what you can achieve with the area you can win, with the topography that you've got. It's what you can actually get out of the scheme at the end. And you don't necessarily know until right at the end of the design process. So, controlling the quantities, water goes over the edge like that. There's 27 in Greater Green 1, 27 lumps of water stored down the system, and the flows modelled down that system. All the flow coming off the road and the footpaths are passed into each cell, and then each cell passes forward down the system. I'm not going to go into the details of that, but there are checkdowns. You can see this concrete here. They're forming it's very quite an urban nature to this, so it's kind of quite strong in its urban design quality, so that is holding the flow in each of those sort of areas. And there you are, that's the steepest section. This is really where these features become very close to each other. And then slackening out, this is where they're broader, they're slacker, and you can have them further apart. So each one of those is holding the water back. I'll just describe how that works. The top picture is a wall, and water can actually run through the wall underground in a sort of picked up pipe, and it passes the water through the wall. But if that can't take the flow, it actually builds up behind the wall, and it overtops through what we call a slot weir. But it can actually overtop right over the top of the whole wall. Now, I've never seen that, but I have seen it go over the slot weir in extreme events. So, that's basically how it works. You can see them on the picture. These are the pickup drains and the soil going in, and the control chambers here. There's 27 of those. It sounds a lot, but they're very cheap to build, and they allow you to use the landscape to control flow. Rather than having it all controlled at one point over here, you control it in lots of places to a known amount. And that's the cascade in the model, if you like, of the storage running through this site. Just to kind of summarize, I can go through that, but the peak flow for the 100-year event, you'll have heard of a 100-year event, because I know you're all slow to flow enthusiasts, and I'm not going to try and explain that, but that is obviously, with the climate change allowance, you're getting a massive reduction in flow from all that flow belting off all the surfaces, that landscape and holding in these massive extreme events quite a lot of flow. And that's a similar graph to what Amanda had, in flow with the blue, and then the two curves here are with the impact of the SuDS effectively. And the outflow as built was because we were able to not line these SuDS eventually in the design, and we could get some losses into the ground, which meant the volume in the curves actually being reduced down by losses through infiltration. Just to say also that these things manage the surfaces immediate to them, but another important aspect is about exceedance generally in cities. With intense rainfall, as we've seen, water's going to be on the surface from all over the place. So we actually modelled flow coming from other roads, at the side of Greater Green, and if they exceed, because they're on slopes, what will happen? So we modelled those, and again, it was showing quite a high benefit in actually controlling all that flow from surrounding areas as well. And that's just another curve showing how that works. But so that's important. I mean, you may have heard of the Cloudburst project in Copenhagen, where they've had massive overland flow of surface water going through their city. This is in effect trying to mimic that. It's day-to-day management of the exact areas of contribution, but also inheriting flow paths through the city. I'm not going to go into that, but that's Greater Green 2, and 440 cubic metres of water stored within the cells and outflow into the river. The sort of areas, 8,000 square metres of land going into that scheme. And just a few of the slides here, a few of the pointers that we found really good, including public art in our SuDS is really important, it's informative, it's celebratory. This is a mixture of celebration of that area of Sheffield historically, but also, bug hotels, why not get something in that that's sculptural, that adds to the quality of the environment, it sells the story. We've got little placards throughout the SuDS that just have little messages that are there about, the quantities of water or the level of carbon and biodiversity. Bits of the interpretation board as well to explain how it works. Just to talk about the management, everybody's obsessed with the management. This has been an overall reduction in management costs for this area, because before it was traffic lights, railings, bollards, tarmac. Rip all that out, put planting in, it's actually been a reduction in the cost to look after this area of the city. So, not that that's going to be always the case, but it's just to indicate that sometimes you have to think about, actually, maybe we could get a benefit here about the change that we're making. We have a 3-year experiment, and the outcome really is spot weeding. There's very little of that. Bud leer is probably the biggest pain. And a bit of litter picking at the edges, and then one cut each year in about February, and the whole of the landscape is cut to the ground, bar the trees and the shrubs, and a deep litter pick is undertaken at the same time. So that's the sort of thing. These are quite big beds. You can imagine you can't litter pick into the middle of them. But that is the style of the cutting and the style of the planting. This is kind of perennial, dry, perennial planting in a very free-draining soil. We'll talk about that shortly. Just to say, you can't actually read that, but people do ask, why have you done this in Sheffield? And it's probably a combination of the team, and the team being people who worked in Sheffield for years, either as highway engineers or as landscape architects, and a number of people like Nigel doing it at the university, coming with planting ideas. We had a good SuDS designer, so they were light touch, and I really recommend that. If you can actually get a SuDS designer to come in and basically support the learning of your highway engineer and your landscape architect, you can have a team that are skilled for life in carrying on and doing this. So that was really important. I've been pushing SuDS and supporting all the way through. But, there's a range of people. I suppose it's about commitment and risk-taking and, importance of all those aspects. And that seems to be, we've got a history of water and planting in the city centre, so these things have worked really well. And just another point, you need to bring the highway engineers along. If you want to do retrofit SuDS in your area, it's often going to involve the highway, and you need to really bring highways along. I've been nibbling away at highway engineers for years and seem to have convinced them, and they're quite embracing SuDS now. And so they weren't bothered about this, they loved it. In a way, water falling off the highway here, there's no gullies to clean. So they're kind of going, great, we don't need to worry about performance indicators of water on the highway, it just goes into the SuDS scheme. They're more worried about the planting and sustainability, but we're proving 6 years on the Greater Green 1, not a problem. We will need to go in and do. We've allowed for some costs to go in and beat up the vegetation, but bring highway engineers along through things is really important, so they have an ownership, and it's getting them in front of people, maybe not yourselves, but other people, other SuDS designers, to convince them that this is a sensible thing to have a go at. Challenging those around you. There's all sorts of issues that come about with urban retrofit. Contamination, we found lots of contamination, and people were just going to see it, put liners in everywhere. You're going to have a small depth of soil, which we didn't want. So we challenged it and actually looked at, will those contaminants cause a problem to rivers? And in the end, it was proved no. Mercury might get to the River Don in 1,500 years. I think we'll take the risk. So we didn't line, so plants can grow, their roots can get into the ground below the growing medium. You'll get oxidation and so on of those remaining hydrocarbons because they're not sealed below a liner. So, it's trying to challenge some big risks to the sewer from groundwater, trying to address, is there a real risk, and, providing evidence around that. Utilities, again, people go, utilities what can do anything. Utilities can be accommodated in many situations within SuDS schemes. It's when, the line at a level where they will be floating in midair through your SuDS that maybe you need to think about it. But we've got all sorts of utilities running through our SuDS scheme, and some of them we've actually earmarked, highlighted in this paving system through the SuDS. It gets lost in the vegetation, but it's protecting the utilities and keeps a location clear as well. Soil's really important. We've got very eco soil here, completely compost, green waste, sandstone aggregate waste, crushed glass, and sandy silt from sugar beet washings. It creates this soil with very free draining, fertile, but with a bit of guts about it. It's not a complete powdery mess. It does have something about it, and it's just proven to be fantastic because it's a foundation soil really to your planting. It's like conditions like this with droughts that the soil really shows why it was good to put the effort into choosing that soil and the right planting that goes with it. Just a few other things detailing. We've tried to come up with some new ideas. Celebrating Sheffield steel, so stainless steel overflows through, so water goes into a bed, it infiltrates into the ground, it's picked up, but then in extreme events it can't go in the ground, it's filling up the landscape, and then it has to go somewhere. So we have these overflows that go into the system below and then off to the river. Just to say, Greater Green is, we've done 2 big schemes now. As I say, largely economically focused but now we're on to transport schemes and changing the fabric of the city's roads. So we're now looking at all the city's roads around the city centre where we can introduce SuDS in whatever way we can. This runs to Greater Green, so it'll be linking up, spreading these fingers of green through the city, downgrading roads and generating more. And the same with the Future High Street Fund, SuDS all the way down our main old shopping street, Fargate, controlling the flow in this case, the sewer, we can't get it to the river, it's just not possible. And just to say, the influence of doing retrofit, it's becoming normalised. As I say, if you get the skills and people locally, then you start to kind of see this, we should be trying it on everything. Why not? So normalising that. And the good thing is, by doing it in retrofit, it starts to influence new development. Manley was saying about Schedule 3. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we will get more pressure on developers to take up SuDS. If we're doing it ourselves already and testing it and adopting it and seeing how it works, then that adds huge value to pushing developers to include it. So we're getting developers now to provide attention, as in these sorts of planting for highway in their housing development. So, we are getting that. And obviously it gives us experience to work with other drivers. As I say, a lot of these areas haven't got a water problem, but it brings experience. So when we have areas with water problems, like flooding, surface water flood risk, or sewer flooding, or whatever, then we can use the skills and the experience to actually bring to that. So delivering more retrofit, it's about aligning investment opportunities between different partners. But I think this accepting that all those benefits that SuDS can bring, biodiversity, carbon, cooling, air quality, blah, 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 transport as part of it, actually a lot of retrofit SuDS will be a mixture of funding at the end of the day. So, we'll probably have to accept that. So better valuation of SuDS, I think that's something we could do to do more of in Sheffield. What are they really providing now that we built these things in all these different aspects that I've just mentioned? But I think for a challenge to the people who really got the water problems is to try and give time to explore all these ideas of integration of water into our cities. I think that's the last slide. Thank you very much.